Hello and good afternoon. My name is Raymond Teo and I'm a senior consultant at Great Place to Work in ASEAN and ANZ. We are really happy to have so many of you join us at our second Workplace Culture Masterclass. Today's topic is about emerging stronger from COVID-19 as the #1 employer on world's best workplace list. And we are very honored and excited to have with us Mr. Christopher Ong, Managing Director of DHL Express in Singapore. We will be inviting Chris to share more with us in a short while. This webinar is from 3 to 4 p.m. and will be recorded. We will post excerpts of this video on our Great Place to Work website and social media pages after the session. This session will begin with a sharing from Chris for about 30 minutes, where he will tell us more about the DHL journey towards success in creating a very positive workplace culture. And thereafter, we will have a time of Q&A. Hence, if you have any questions along the way, do feel free to pop them into the Q&A chat box right at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to get to them after Chris's presentation. Before we dive further into today's webinar, let me say a few words about Great Place to Work. Who are we? Simply put, Great Place to Work is a global authority on workplace culture. Since 1992, we have surveyed more than 100 million people around the world and used those deep insights, the data that we have gathered through all the survey responses, to define what makes for great workplace experiences. We help organizations quantify their culture and produce better business results by helping them create high trust work experience for all employees. Everything we do is driven by our mission, which is this: to build a better world by helping organizations become great places to work for all, not just for some, but for all people, for all employees at every level of the hierarchy. And as we begin, allow us to do a quick Mentimeter poll to better understand who do we have online. So if you just oblige us, if you can whip up your mobile phones, mobile devices, and scan the QR code just right in front of you. And there are just 3 questions, quick questions for you to respond to. All right, so this is the first question. Which industry do you come from? Wonderful. Right. So a lot of us are from logistics. Others, we have some from pharmaceutical, some from banking finance, some from manufacturing. Wonderful. We just keep it for a while more. Okay. Just keep it open for a while more. All right. All right, let's move on. What role do you play in your organization? So if you just select the most appropriate response. Okay, great. Thank you. So we do have quite a number of senior leaders in this webinar, which is great. Right. Well, it does seem that we are quite well represented here. Thank you. All right, just in case for some of us who are wondering how do you get into Mentimeter, what you can do is you can go to www.menti.com and then that will lead you to the website. You can key in the code just right in front of you, 255768 and 9. So that is how you can get into the Mentimeter poll. All right, wonderful. So if you take a quick look before we move on to the next question, yeah, we do have quite a number of senior leaders as well. So glad to have you. Okay, let's move on to the last question. So what's your level of seniority in your organization? Wonderful. Thank you. So it does seem that we have quite a number of mid-level managers and supervisors with us, and many head of departments. Very good, very good. You know what? Today I'm very sure we will learn a lot of wonderful golden nuggets of wisdom from Chris today. You won't regret spending your time with us. Okay, great. Let's move on. Thank you for responding to the poll. Now let us dive deeper into a session proper. As we all know by now, the past 2 years have been very, very challenging, very unprecedented in terms of the disruption that we have experienced, the unimaginably huge challenges to governments, to businesses, to families, and to even individuals like you and I. And this is all around the world. And I suppose it will be impossible to truly and accurately quantify the real cost of COVID-19. So, but based on research from the internet, we do know that there are more than 490 million confirmed cases with more than 6 million deaths around the world. And this is just the official count. Global GDP growth for 2020 was a 3% contraction. Closer to home in Singapore, COVID-19 totally decimated our tourism industry, the air transport, arts and entertainment industries, and many more. We saw sharp contractions in food services, in retail trade, and land transport, among others. We even saw 200,000 jobs being lost in a year. And today, many companies worldwide continue to suffer from supply chain disruptions that affected their production capabilities. And together with other factors like the severe inflationary pressures that we are seeing now, we continue to experience huge challenges to business survival. So in a nutshell, it's been a crazy world, and it will continue to be a crazy world that we live in. Therefore, with this context in mind, it is hard to imagine how challenging it has been for business organizations to have to go through these storms and yet emerge successful and still have its people raving about the organizations they work for. Hence, it is truly, truly amazing to know that DHL Express has done just that, and they topped the Singapore Best Workplaces list for the large organization category in both 2020 and 2021. So that's 2 in a row. It's an amazing achievement. So who better to learn from but from the best of the best? Now, I have the greatest pleasure now to introduce Chris to all of you. And so Mr. Christopher Ong is currently the Managing Director of DHL Express in Singapore, a position that he has held since 2018. He's responsible for driving sustainable growth in this key market for DHL Express in the Asia Pacific. And he has focused the business on delivering great service quality for the customers that they serve. In his time with DHL, Chris has been actively investing in people to ensure the high levels of employee engagement and motivation. This focus on people has been recognized over the years at multiple awards that they have received and conferred on by various organizations, including Great Place to Work. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Chris as he shares with us his experience in DHL and the phenomenal results that they have achieved. Chris, over to you now.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I'm delighted to be able to share our journey with all of you in our Great Place to Work. Now, for a start, I'd like to introduce DHL very briefly. We are the world's most international company, and as we'd like to say in DHL, the world is 2/3 covered by water and the rest is covered by DHL. I know we cover over 220 countries and territories all around the world. And in fact, we serve the world through 3 global hubs, 19 regional hubs. And as you can see, we have a huge number of facilities all around the world with more than 2,300 flights per day, carrying shipments, from New York to London, Chicago to Zimbabwe, right? And so, as an organization, we call ourselves the Big Yellow Machine, and we have 120,000 employees or certified international specialists, people whom we deem as the superstars of the express industry. Now, here specifically in Singapore, we are we've been here 50 years. In 2022 marks our 50th year of operation here in Singapore. And we have one regional hub sited right here in Changi, which is our South Asia hub. We have 11 dedicated aircraft that serve the Singapore market as well as the region. And we have 340 vehicles that ply routes daily to pick up and deliver packages, of which 9 of them are completely electric, and we will plan to expand that electric fleet dramatically in the coming years. And we have roughly 50% market share of the business in terms of express logistics, and we have over 1,000 certified international specialists here in the country. Of course, we are ISO certified, and we have 4 of our facilities that are TAPA certified. And TAPA is the Transport Asset Protection Association, and we received the highest grading in terms of the A-class services in terms of security. As you can see, we're very proud to be the chosen logistics provider of Pfizer, where we've delivered more than 2.5 billion doses of vaccine around the world, and in over 175 countries. And in Singapore specifically, we've delivered over 11 million Pfizer vaccines. Now, moving on, DHL is of course part of a global network, DHL Express in Singapore. We have colleagues all around the world who also aim to be the best place to work possible in their countries. And as you can see, if you look worldwide, in 2021, DHL Express globally was named as the #1 great place to work in Asia Pacific, as well as Europe and Latin America. We're also rated #1 and #2 in Greater China, and #2 as well in the Middle East locations. So, DHL Express's Great Place to Work is certified in 70 countries, covering 75% of our employees. And as a global organization, we rose from #8 in 2017 to #2 in 2020 and #1 in 2021. And then, of course, our journey in Singapore mirrored that. We started our journey in 2017 with Great Place to Work, and we started out ranked #6. And we followed that in 2018 as with the #6 ranking. In 2019, we managed to rise 3 places to #3. And of course, in 2020, as mentioned by Raymond, we secured the #1 placing, and we managed to retain it in 2021. Now, this is really a journey that we've taken over a long period of time. And even in 2021, when the times were really difficult, we managed to push the envelope, where our trust index surveys were more than 95% across all 5 dimensions, and improved in 4 of them and maintained in 1. So we managed to actually continue to push the envelope. Right now, the trust index overall survey score is 97%. And if we look internally within DHL, I think I need to speak to all the leaders out there. This didn't happen overnight. Okay, in 2009, we went through what I would call a near-death experience. DHL as an organization, although we have synonymous with Global Express, we almost ceased to exist during the financial crisis in 2008, 2009. And at that time, motivation levels, engagement levels were extremely low. But we recognized the importance of our people, and we began this journey of really climbing this mountain of motivated people. And over the last 12, 13 years, what has happened is that we continue to invest in our people. We continue to drive employee engagement. And last year in 2021 in Singapore, we hit an all-time high where our employee engagement numbers were at 99%. 99% over more than 1,000 people, all right? So this was really hard work that happened over a long period of time. So make no mistakes, it didn't happen overnight. This was something that happened over a long period of time. But any journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with 1 step. And so, we started that journey in 2009, and we've managed to climb this mountain. Now, what was the recipe for success? Okay, and honestly, when I talk about this now, some of you may say, look, there's nothing special, right? A lot of people have these type of strategies. But I believe what has set us apart is our ability to execute. So we have 4 pillars, 3 letters, and a passport. And what the 4 pillars are starts with motivated people, right? That is the foundation, the very foundation of our success, right? Because motivated people go that extra mile. make that difference for the customers, solve the problems for the customers. Because when our employees are engaged, that's how we get engaged customers. If our employees are completely disengaged, there is no way our customers will feel engaged with the organization. And so motivated people deliver that great service quality. And time again, we have seen our superstars really go that extra mile for our customers to really make a difference in their lives. We've got lots of stories to tell, and if time permits, perhaps Raymond later, I would share some of them. But then once you have this great service quality, the loyal customers will keep coming back. Because even if we're a little more expensive, and by no means are we cheap, right, to move items, they will keep coming back. And loyal customers will basically drive our profitability. And so once you take care of these three things, the money will follow. And we preach what we call the virtuous cycle, because once we make the money, we commit to reinvesting back into our people so that this cycle keeps going. And then, we now have three letters, right? Three letters being people equals growth and quality. Once again, it's about people, right? We believe that people are what drive growth because they deliver the quality. So quality is what pulls, the whole growth engine along. And finally, we have one passport. We're very proud of this program called Certified International Specialist. Now, again, this was born in the midst of the last crisis. In 2009, 2010, we created this program because in the midst of that crisis, we pulled out of the US domestic business. We stopped shipping from Chicago to New York, Dallas to LA, for example, right? But we continued our international business from Boston to Paris and from Chicago to Buenos Aires, for example, right? But it resulted, by pulling out the domestic business, 30,000 of our colleagues in the US lost their jobs. We wrote off 3 billion euros on our balance sheet, right? And like I said, that was a near-death experience for us. But in the midst of that, right, in the midst of that crisis, our colleagues in the US did a lot of soul searching and asked themselves, who are we now? We were a distant third in market share behind, the UPSs and the FedExes of the world. And in the US, once we pulled out domestic, we became minuscule, right? We became minuscule. So there was a lot of soul searching. But in the midst of that crisis, we said, hey, let's have our couriers, not just our couriers, every single person in the organization to be experts at international shipping. And so we created this program that was meant as a training program, but eventually we've morphed it into a cultural change program that not only teaches skills, but talks about values and gives our people, especially our frontline team leads and supervisors, not just technical skills, but soft skills. We teach them how to lead. We teach them how to engage with their peers as well as the people that work for them. These are the frontline leaders that have truly, right, lifted the bar for the organization. So, with all of that as the framework, right, we, during this pandemic, really focused on four things. One, people first, right? That's, the last 2 minutes have been talking about, it's all about people. And so it's about putting our people first, right, in everything that we do. Thereafter, we thought about, hey, that, when we talk about safety, health and safety, yes, that's one part of it. Then, of course, the next part is the future of work. With this disruption, what are we going to do for the office-based staff? How are we going to support them, right, in the midst of this disruption and change, where people are out of their comfort zones? Then, of course, you then need to continue to engage, because when we are on Zoom and looking at, square boxes on the screen, it's even more critical that we are engaging with people, and we find creative ways, right, to engage with them both on the floor and in the field, because being an operating company that's an essential service, we continue to have hundreds of people working in the facilities every single day, making sure shipments get picked up, delivered, sorted, and go to the right place. And once again, once you take care of these three things, then, we have the opportunity to go help, to go outside. Now, we firmly believe in DHL that you need to take care of the basics, right? First, you talk about people first, the safety, we have to take care of the basics. Then, you think about the future of work and engagement. But when we do that, we are already slightly differentiated, perhaps, compared to other organizations. But to be truly unique as an organization, you need to give your people a purpose. And we believe that wholeheartedly. And that's why, once our people felt safe, protected, and they could keep running the business, we talked about how can we go on then to support the community, because that gives our people a huge sense of pride. Every time, our couriers see those vaccine boxes, they're filled with pride, right? That we are not just connecting people and improving lives. In many cases, we're saving lives, right? So once, we take care of these things, I think, it became very clear what we needed to do as an organization during this crisis, right? So quickly talking about people first, one thing we did have were actually very experienced colleagues who cover our environmental health and safety period. And, some of them went through the SARS crisis in Singapore, more than 20 years ago. And they actually advised me quite early on, actually already in late December, early January, that, hey, maybe we should form a task force, or rather we should start, procuring PPE. We never know, maybe we should start. And at that point, we decided, hey, why don't we just get the task force together cross-functionally? And in fact, we started, weekly calls. And in fact, up till today, more than 2 years later, we still have a weekly call. Every Wednesday morning, we're there just catching up with one another, touching base, making sure that everything's in place. But we basically started the task force. We've got the protective gear. We rolled out things that would support both our employees as well as our customers, be it contactless payments, contactless deliveries, etc. And I think one of the most important things we did was to give our colleagues the psychological safety, to say that there will be no layoffs, no pay reductions, despite our volumes falling off a cliff. I can tell you that the first quarter of 2020, right, we saw our volumes fall off a cliff. And we had it was seared in my mind because we had our global CEO here doing a business review, and he's saying, what's happening? Right? And Singapore, oftentimes, as a business, we are the first to feel impacts whenever there's any disruption in supply chains globally, right? But the good thing is we're also the first to recover. So because of that disruption, and the rest of the world hadn't felt it yet, right? We had a lot to answer for. However, even with that disruption, our compass was focused on our people, because we knew after a decade, right? We've been through so many ups and downs. We always focus on our people, and in the end, we can make it work, right? And then I think this was the most obvious example of that, right? I'm sure many of you remember, the borders closing in March 2020. Literally, we had less than 24 hours to react. We heard over the news, right, the night before that by midnight the next day, the borders will be closed. We have more than 250 colleagues who cross the border every single day. They support our hub, they're operators on the ground, they are our customer service agents, right? And they cross the border every day. The fact that the border was closing didn't mean that more than 200 of our colleagues would lose their jobs, and essentially our business will grind to a halt. So, immediately our managers, our leaders rolled up their sleeves, literally went down to the hub. Our hub colleagues, really literally rolled out their sleeves. The GM went down and engaged with all the Malaysian colleagues and says, look, we need you to stay here, right? So they were about at the end of their shift. They basically went back, packed all their things, and came back for what they thought would be 2 weeks. Little did they know it turned to 2 years, right? But because of our swift response, we set up, made sure that they have roof over their heads, and we committed, don't worry about that, we'll take care of that. We set up an alternative work site in Johor Bahru, right? I had the benefit of being the country manager of Malaysia just before coming home. And just before coming back, I had just invested to expand our Johor Bahru gateway 3 times the size. And it was focused partially because of business, but also because of our people. We wanted a great working environment for our people. And I guess, what goes around comes around. The fact that we invested dramatically to have a great workplace for our people in Johor benefited all our colleagues. There were 50 of them that were stuck and were working across in JB, right? And we basically scrambled, make sure they, we shipped IT equipment across. We did everything they could to allow them to work, continue to work, continue to get paid, didn't have to worry about their jobs, give them that psychological safety, right? And we even, for those who then came back, those who are operating, who had to stay in Singapore, we made sure they had the roof over their heads. And basically, we gave them one-time allowances, and it was we had a running joke internally because we decided on the allowance amount, right? And again, remember, this was when the volumes were dropping. The government hadn't come out to say that they will support us with JSS, right? But we said we will take care of our people first. We said we will give them an allowance, and apparently 2 days later, right, the government announced that they will give the same amount. So I suppose maybe we had to check for wiretaps, right, in our conference room. But essentially, that's what it meant for us to put our people first.
Wonderful, Chris. Thanks for sharing all that. And you know what I'm hearing from you is that a strong foundation has been laid because of the strong engagement that you have had with your employees, and because you looked after your staff, they in turn looked after the business. They in turn looked after your customers, and that really propelled you forward. And even to not just survive, but what it sounds to me is that you guys thrive even despite the challenges, and this is phenomenal. And just as a comment for all our friends who are online, DHL is a very truly amazing company, because a lot of times a lot of our clients would say that usually small companies are the ones with the highest scores in terms when they participate in the Trust Index, our Great Place to Work survey, because the common notion is that smaller companies are easier to manage and employees are easier to engage. But so that all of us appreciate the magnitude of the achievement that Chris and the team has done. DHL is a huge company, and for them, as you heard from Chris, they achieved 97% of in the TI score, and to me, that is really a strong testament of how happy the people are working. And as what Chris has just been sharing, people first, and I really believe that the people are feeling and experiencing the wonderful, all the management's approach of engaging them. I think is paying off. Now, Chris, I've got a question for you.
Yep.
We have been hearing about, we share about people first HR approach, and truth to be told, this is something that we often hear, not just in DHL, but across many other companies. They've been there, they've done that. And it is often very tempting to see people first approaches as, programs, initiatives in itself. So yet at the same time, I think the reality is that these approaches are sometimes perceived very differently by the staff on the ground, right? In other words, what the management feels or what they're trying to do in the programs is not really what is being experienced. They see things from different perspectives. So perhaps you can enlighten us, how should employee be feeling? What is people first approach? How does it look like from employee's perspective? How does it look like in action? How does it look like in reality? What should they be feeling? What should they be experiencing? Maybe you can just share some light on this.
Sure. I think, our values, right, or our guiding principles at DHL is to deliver results without compromising respect. Now, this was rolled out many years ago by our current chairman of the board, our corporate board, Frank Apple. And to be very honest, when he first rolled this out, in 2010 for our strategy 2015, a lot of people looked at him. He just taken over and said, what kind of strategy is that? Respect results. I thought you talk about, something more sexy, reduce cost, drive productivity, etc. He talked about respect and results. I think he was, ahead of his time when he came up with, that concept. Because at DHL, we are very focused on, yes, delivering results. We have to deliver results, right? Remember, it's delivering results without compromising respect. But, the point is respecting our people at every level, right? Especially our frontline. We put a huge amount of focus on our frontline colleagues. We make sure they have the best equipment, the best scanners, comfortable uniforms, the best, shoes, because they are the ones that engage with our customers on a day-to-day, right? It means that we value them as a person. And that, and for that, we have the Certified International Specialist program to thank, because we have part of the modules that we facilitate is about how you engage with your people. It's the soft skills. And again, this is for every single leader, down to the team lead who manages 6 or 7 couriers, right? We invest that time. And this isn't training that is conducted by HR. This is training that is facilitated by leaders themselves. So I am a facilitator. So I would facilitate all the new team leads, the new leaders. I would invest 3 days every 6 months to run this program because we're teaching values, right? We're setting expectations, right? And once our leaders get it and they see their leaders as role models, walking the talk, giving respect, and it's, sometimes as simple as saying thank you. I give you a very clear example, right? When we started this training for some of our supervisors and team leads, they didn't even know how to say thank you and appreciate their staff right in front of them. But we encourage them, we help them, we coach them, and we said, do simple things. You don't have to do grandiose things, right? Simple things. We gave them a bit of money, and the team leads would go and whenever they hit a certain performance level, the team leads will buy, their group of 6 or 7 curry puffs. Right? The first time he did it, I think all the team, members got a shock. He's like, huh? I've been working here 20 years. I've never gotten a curry puff from my team lead. Right? We started giving that team curry puffs. Then the next time they hit the target, he bought curry puffs again. Right? And the third time they hit the target, the team bought the team lead curry puffs.
Oh.
I mean, so it's really about really respecting them, giving, value to the people who are on the ground, and do it genuinely at every level, right? And I make it a point to remember people's names. I mean, I don't have a photographic memory, but I think I can remember, even though we've got huge number of, salespeople, team leads, supervisors, I make it a point, right, to even remember couriers' names where I can, because that's a sign of respect, that we value each and every person. So if you ask me, I think that's what colleagues should feel.
Wonderful.
Feel that they're respected, feel that they're valued, feel that the organization is prepared to invest in them.
Right. Thank you so much, Chris. That's really the secret sauce that, I think all of us are really looking for. And you know what is coming across to me is that when you talk about people first, it's not just about the programs. It's not just about the policies, because all these you can replicate, right? You can copy what other organizations do, and it's all out there in Google, in internet, in all kinds of articles and books. But what I'm hearing is really it goes down to the very fundamental interpersonal relationship. Yeah, as you mentioned, right? Saying thank you.
And frankly, as a leader, in fact, this came right from the very top. As a country manager, the expectation for me is that I spend 70% of my time either in front of my customers or in front of my people, not sitting behind my desk clearing emails, or locked up doing strategy meetings, right? It's about being on the floor and in the field. And I think that cascades down to every, the leaders. If I, as the country head, are spending time walking the floor at the facilities, talking to our couriers, trying to find out what's happening on the ground, what are the challenges you face, then what do the rest have, who has an excuse not to, right?
Thank you so much, Chris. The part about saying thank you, I think this is my personal takeaway. And in fact, my wife always reminds me, say thank you after she does something nice. I always get into trouble for not saying thank you enough. So thanks for that.
Okay, so maybe we could move on.
Yes, please.
Right. I think, the other thing that we moved to was, of course, remote work. And I think everybody went through this, right? But I think one of the key things that we did really well, was that we actually put it out there that we are pro-family. And what that meant is telling our people, look, we understand. If your 3-year-old comes and interrupts you in the middle of a Zoom call, don't worry about it, right? All of us are going through something similar. Give them that psychological safety. We, in fact, literally overnight, because we have a 200-seat call center that had to be moved, completely to remote work, literally within 24 hours, right? And what happened was we then basically packed all those blue bags filled with desktop computers that we literally brought to the homes of the staff. And this wasn't done by our couriers, it was the managers and the supervisors taking cabs, driving their cars. Literally, they were rolling up their sleeves, and we, where we could, we helped to do the same, right? And then when we had the opportunity to, when money, was enough, and we realized that there was going to be even more remote work, we converted all the desktops into laptops, right? It was a small investment that I think went really deeply into the hearts of the customer service advisors, because none of them, and some of them were working as a customer service advisor for years, none of them ever got laptops. They always thought laptops are for the salespeople or management staff, but no. We equipped them with the best technology so that they could do their work well, right? Okay, yeah. And then,
go on.
And then communication, right? Communication. And we've talked about showing appreciation and thank you. And of course, we got to find different creative ways to do this. Of course, you've got your care packs and so on, but we made it a point where, possible, all of us as senior managers were on the floor and in the field, right? At the facility, giving out the packs, right? Making sure that, where we could, we gave out bentos, food appreciation weeks, and so on. So where we could, do physical, we did. Where we had to do virtual, right? We did as well. Whether it's recognition events, we in fact gave a bit of money to teams to come up with Grab food vouchers so that they can have team lunches. We learned, right? We learned from our younger colleagues how to use Kahoot, right? Mentimeter, right? Slido, all those types of things, right? We started to, all of us as managers had to start to learn new tricks, how to engage with people. And once again, it wasn't easy, I will admit, but as things opened up again, nothing beats that physical interaction. But having said that, we would basically, when we did the care packs and so on, it was again the managers and the supervisors. It was us going there physically to give out these care packs and say, look, you are important to us, right? You are important to us.
So
right?
Chris, if I may just interject here, when we talk about communication, oftentimes, as you've mentioned, town halls, meetings, awards or AMA sessions, Ask Me Anything sessions, these are a lot of, communication channels that many companies and many leaders utilize. Maybe speak to us in terms of not just about the technology of the platform, but how do you, not just you, but your leaders, how do you just not just connect to the head, but also connect to the hearts of the staff? Because bearing in mind that we are all in a remote working condition. How do we connect to the heart?
Well, I think part of it, as I mentioned, if you talk about the heart, it's about, it's about the fact that, yes, people are physically apart, but we make it a point to physically kind of visit you and make sure you get the care pack. It's not just the courier that comes and drops it off, right? Sometimes we do, because some of our colleagues actually want to thank the couriers. Right? They actually want to thank the couriers for what they do, because everyone really, for those of us who could retreat to our homes during the worst of COVID, our couriers are still out there picking up and delivering it. So, they were really our frontline heroes. So, we do a combination of that. But I think, again, that physical interaction when we deliver the care packs. But I think one of the things that we committed to everyone, we opened up Slido, right? During town halls, during small team meetings, etc. People can ask anonymously. Somehow the culture in Singapore is people don't want to ask upfront. They're afraid there'll be repercussions or whatever. But anyway, so we allow people to ask anonymously, and we will answer. We commit that we'll answer every single question. Now, they may not like the answer, right? They may not like the answer, but I think what we do is we commit to be fully transparent, right? With oil prices going up, people ask, oh, can we, oil transport allowance hasn't changed so long, can we get more money? And we said, well, actually, we already pay a lot more in transport allowance than most other companies, in the country. So no, we can't do that. But guess what? When we found that there was a gap in our medical, right, we made sure that we increased that significantly. So I think that the staff actually appreciated the transparency and consistency. And they ask at different levels at different times, and the fact that we have been extremely consistent, and that's because we know we were guided by our values. We know what we can and we cannot do. And I think the staff really appreciated the fact that we are being fully, we're honest and frank. We don't say something that's politically correct or pass it off to HR to try and deal with. Right? We will answer honestly. And like I said, right, we've been asked a lot of things. We don't necessarily say yes to everything.
Right.
And yet, I think, that has helped our people trust us, which I believe is really what makes communication effective.
Wonderful. And it most sounds like parenting, right? I mean, as a parent, I don't say yes to my child all the time, even have to deliver to them the hard message. But what I'm hearing is that, underlying the difficult messages that you may have to communicate, there's a layer of respect, there's a layer of, it's undergirded by trust, it's undergirded by, even if I may say, love, right, for the staff themselves. And they know that you care for them. And this kind of cushions the difficult message. In fact, there was a question from Joan Chu. She's asking, how do you balance feelings of complacency and entitlement by certain employees? I believe what Chris has mentioned is somewhat to answering that question. We really need to, it starts with a basic level of connection and respect and the connection with the individual staff. And based on that, we deal with complacency, we deal with difficult messages, we deal with all the difficult decisions that may have to be taken.
And maybe to Joan, right? And maybe my message to you is that one of the things that we equip our leaders with is sort of like a framework for giving feedback. And in fact, we strongly encourage people to give what we call motivational as well as developmental feedback, right? And don't wait until the year-end assessment or what. In fact, we should be giving feedback on a regular basis. We have this thing called performance dialogues, right? That we do a small team minimum. It's once a week. Sometimes they do it more than that. So these are the small teams. They have the opportunity to give feedback, look at the performance, give that feedback, talk about challenges, etc. And the fact is, we need to be able to, like I said, once we have got the trust, then when we give challenging messages, people are more willing to accept it. Now, I've always said, right? I've always told, I've been back 3 years. The first year I was back was challenging. It wasn't, smooth sailing for us in Singapore, right? And we had to make certain changes. But as we went through that change, I'd always said, stick with me, right? Help us make these changes. And once we do, and we start making more money than we need to, right, we will reinvest. And true enough, in 2020, in 2021, based on what HR accounted for, we invested more than 4 million back into our people, right? During the peak of the pandemic. And the fact is, right, I think that has paid us multiple times over in our profitability, which has, gone through the roof.
Right. It almost feels that your staff are watching you and seeing whether you are leaders with integrity. Are you walking the talk?
Yes.
Are you really looking after us?
Yes.
Right? And in fact, this is one of our dimensions that we measure in a Great Place to Work survey, right? Are managers trustworthy, right? And really, really thank you for sharing that. Really, really insightful.
Yeah. And, then moving on from there, right? Then once you're able to take care of our people, we can then go off and take care of the community. And I think our people were extremely proud, right? The fact that we, as the big yellow machine, our purpose as an organization is to connect people and improve lives. And in many of these cases now, we're actually saving lives, right? Be it to PPE, to vaccines, to sanitizer. We even sponsored, masks together with the Temasek Foundation and so on. And the fact is, we did work with the Red Cross last year to deliver, these care packs to needy companies, right smack in the middle of the pandemic in 2020, where it was really needed the most. And in fact, our people were so proud to be able to do this, visit these old folks and, deliver these care packs. And so I think, as an organization, because we're able to do what we do, right, there's a huge amount of pride in our purpose. And I do believe that if we are able to, if our people really believe in that purpose, they would then, of course, find this to be a great place to work. And I believe that's what makes us unique. Okay. Now, before I end, again, we've risen to the historic challenge. We keep, again, this is a virtuous cycle, so I'm not going to keep talking about it. But the fact is, I believe it works, right? I've been with the company 15 years in different parts of the organization, from the regional office to running Vietnam, to running Malaysia, and then coming back home, right? And the fact is, this works, right? Putting our people right at the front and then ensuring that we, complete this cycle has worked for us. And, if I could bring you back to this slide where, we talked about our employee engagement, all right? Ultimately, this is a means to an end and not an end in itself. Because the next slide, I'd just like to share our performance financially. And you can see, and this is our global, not Singapore, this is globally in millions of euro, right? And you can see in 2008, 2009, as I said, we were at the brink of death, right? We almost ceased to exist as an organization. But once we started using the focus strategy, the 4 pillars, putting our people first, investing back in them, right? We spent in total over 200 million euros in this certified program. But if you can see, every single year since 2010, we have made more money the following year than the year before. And in 2021, in 2020, that was already in the peak of the pandemic. We were already, right, at an all-time high, 2.75 billion. But last year, we cracked 4.2 billion in profitability, right? That was more than double what we had prior to the pandemic in 2019, right? So, it isn't by coincidence that the 2 charts have the same trajectory. We believe with all our heart that when we are able to truly engage at every level, not just the CEO, not just the senior managers, not just the middle managers, all the way down to the frontline supervisor who manages a small team, they are the ones that have the biggest impact. And if they can be engaged, then, there's really nothing stopping you from driving engagement across the organization and then delivering those great results. So, yeah, the journey of 1,000,000 miles starts with 1 step.
Thank you, Chris, for all the insights. I've learned so much from you today. And right now, we're just going to open up for a time of question and answers. I'm sure many of you in the audience have got burning questions, tough questions even to ask Chris. I'm sure he's more than happy to answer that. So while we wait for our audiences to type in their questions in the Q&A chat box, there is one question already in the queue, and it says, how do you ensure consistency in the behavior of your leaders? And I really like this question a lot. So, as what we've heard so far from you, Chris, is very strong leadership mandate, and it's permeated through the whole organization. So how do you ensure the same values, the same culture, the same sort of behaviors and actions are cascaded effectively and lived out by even the lowest level of managers? And maybe share with us what have been some challenges faced.
Yeah, I suppose, again, it's a journey, right? It's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And the fact is, as I mentioned, we have this program called Certified, where we equip our leaders at every level. Again, not just with the technical skills, but the people skills and the values. Most importantly is the values, right? I remember, when we talk about respect and results, everyone understands results, right? Everyone understands we need to deliver results. But when we start talking about respect, oftentimes we found some of our more junior leaders struggling a little, right? Because we ask them the question, who is your inspirational leader? Who is your respect-focused leader, right? Because you need someone who needs both. And I will tell you that sometimes they struggle to be able to, answer that question. But the fact is, if, we equip them, we give them, the tools, we teach them, we even teach, for example, our supervisors how to communicate. We talk about their words, their music, and their dance. And what that means is the words they choose to use, their tone of voice, their body language. I mean, for some of these supervisors, they never ever, thought about these types of things. But which is why we invested in it to equip them to lead, right? Lead as and be effective in their communication, how they manage themselves. We talk about personal discipline. We talk about, how you manage your team, how do you engage, how do you communicate. And then we give feedback. Again, we have these supervisors that go through this thing called our Supervisory Academy, and the managers are their coaches. So the coaches need to give regular feedback to ensure that they are behaving or performing to what is expected of them. And then, of course, these managers will then have their managers that will give them feedback, and so on and so forth, right? And it's not a straight path. And I can tell you, when we first rolled this CIM out, we had people, okay, not in Singapore, because in Singapore, people won't stand up and say this. But when we were doing training overseas, someone actually just dropped their books and says that this is a, I can't say this online, but basically, this crap, right? So my manager doesn't behave this way. So why do you expect me to behave this way? Right. But this was right at the beginning, right? And because in any change, it's always tough right at the start. But what we need, of course, we need the senior managers to role model the behavior. So the senior managers need to change, right? They need to start delivering results without compromising respect. They need to be able to then really start appreciating their staff, engaging with them, engaging at every level, right? And once, you start that momentum, again, it's about constant feedback. It's about regularly getting feedback, right? Both motivational and developmental. In fact, most of the time in Asia, I think being Asian parents, we give our kids more developmental feedback than motivational feedback. Right? And that's something that I learned through this. I make sure I recognize and I reward my kids for a job well done. If nothing more than, okay, let's, go out for a nice lunch, right?
That's right.
Just to help them realize that, hey, what did I do right? I mean, to really be able to give them feedback and say, I caught you doing something right, and this is what you did. And to be able to then, appreciate them in front of their peers.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope, I hope I answered your question.
Right. I'm just curious, Chris, I hear you say that you give feedback to the staff. Is there feedback upwards to the boss in terms of how they're leading?
Yeah.
How the behaviors they
in fact,
you respect? Are they showing respect? Are they showing appreciation?
No, and the thing is, we do on and off have these 360 feedback loops, right? That allow leaders, and we encourage leaders to ask for feedback, right? In fact, whenever I do my one-on-ones with my team, right? I guess, at DHL, while we're all Asian, we're a multinational company, we've been trained, so I do get feedback regularly as well, right? But that's how we get better. We need to have that culture that we can only get better if we get the feedback.
Right, and leaders being open to receive them as well.
Yes, to be open to give and receive. Again, that is part of, I think, the cultural change that we went through, right? That we have to be able to be open to that, style of management where we have to accept we don't know everything, right? In this day and age, there is no way any leader, no matter how knowledgeable they are, they're able to actually know everything, right? And so we need to be humble enough to accept that, hey, perhaps someone has a slightly better idea and we can, use this, right?
Thank you, Chris. There's a great question from Adeline, and she asks, how do you build people's skills into the KPIs of the people? This is a tough one. How do you measure the effectiveness?
A portion of every leader's bonus is tied to our employee opinion survey.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we set certain targets, right, for people, and honestly, while people in the beginning argued that, our people are just going to give us bad scores, right, to get what they want. But what we found, again, it didn't just happen overnight. We've done this for years, right? If you saw that chart, basically went from 60 to 99. And in the midst of that, we've had very tough times. It wasn't always just one straight route. But the fact is, with this, of course, people understand. Look, there will be, of course, some variations here and there, right? And we basically need to go in and understand why. Why did someone score so badly? And in fact, the EOS is something that, so the GPTW Trust Index Survey is one checkpoint that we will use in the middle of the year. And then we have one towards the end of the year in terms of our employee opinion survey as well. But I mean, that is how we build that in a way that, the employee opinion survey is something that we hold very dearly. And all of us, we don't just take the survey. Once the results come out, we spend lots of time doing focus groups. Right. We go through, and get feedback. We sometimes do skip level meetings. I would meet some of the frontline staff and ask them, hey, how do you feel about your leaders, your managers? And I make it a point, buy them lunch. Okay, this is pre-COVID. Buy them lunch. Spend, an hour over lunch speaking to our team leads, our couriers, our supervisors. Just, okay, what are the challenges? What do you like working at DHL? I always ask the question, what do you like about working at DHL? What can we do better? Right? And the fact that the MD is down there, speaking to people realize it's important that we engage at every level.
Right. And I remember what you shared earlier. Engagement is not just it's not an end in itself, it's a means to an end. Yes. Likewise, even with regards to this KPI question, the KPI, whatever KPI put in place, mustn't be an end in itself. It's really the means to an end, and the end is really engage engagement and showing care and respect, as what you've just shared with us earlier, right?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we have just time for one more question. There's another question here that says, how would you balance people first culture with controls and corporate governance, and perhaps even, if I may throw in, performance?
No, I think let's not be confused when I say deliver results without compromising respect. Remember, results come first. Results come first. Now, I can share with you an anecdote, right? We had issues with absenteeism, not here in Singapore, but in another country that I was running. And we started this thing called a return to work process, which was essentially the supervisor actually, when the colleague comes back, stops the guy and says, how are you doing? What happened? Are you okay? Right? How are you feeling? And essentially, right, when we were proposing rolling this thing out, a lot of people said, oh, your engagement scores are going to crash. People are, going to feel as if you're targeting them when they fall ill and stuff like that. But we went with the mindset that we're not here to target people. We're here seriously to get the supervisors to show some care and concern to the folks, right? To ask what's happening, okay? And so when we started that, yeah, there were some murmurs, but you know what happened? You see, there are some people who basically take habitual MCs, but there are those who turn up for work every single day without fail, early, make sure that they support their customers. And you know what? Once that work from, that process started, those who were consistently coming to work, they became even more engaged because they felt that now it's fair. That those who actually don't turn up, not that they're getting targeted, but they're being questioned for why they're late, why aren't they there to cover their routes, right? And what we realized is once we started this, the incidence of MCs on a Monday or Friday started to drop, right? Again, it's about being people first. Yes, we want to know what's happened. We're not here to target anyone. We want to know, did something go wrong? Do you need, what was the issue? And there was one case that was very clear in my mind. One of our customer service staff, he was actually a very good performer, but all of a sudden, something, he started coming late. He started, not doing well. And basically we started to do this process. Then we found out, right? The supervisor or the manager found out that basically this person's father was very ill. And he had to drop the father off for treatment, for dialysis in the morning, drop the father home, then rush to work, right? And it wasn't just, and he was habitually late because of that. He never mentioned it, but because of that conversation, right? That conversation, we found out. And basically what the manager said is, okay, I want you to take 2 weeks of leave. Figure out how you're going to do this, then come back. Because like this is not going to work. And so the guy went off, did that 2 weeks. And when he came back, he found a way to settle everything. And once again, he became one of the best performers.
Wow. So
it's that connection, that conversation, and really believing, the best in our people. We have to believe that nobody wants to come and be a bad performer, right? There must be something, maybe it's the person's in the wrong seat. If it's the right person on the bus, then perhaps with the right values, with the right mindset, maybe they're in the wrong seat. Maybe we need to help them, in some way. And that, I believe, once we settle that, then, you can continue to drive performance. There is no conflict in my mind.
Wow. Thanks, Chris. So much wisdom. And, based on the questions, what I'm getting, the vibes I'm getting from the questions, that it's not easy. And the people in the room are recognizing that creating a positive culture is such a challenge fraught with so many practical issues that we have got to grapple. But what you've shared today with us, Chris, has been so inspirational. And I'm sure all of us in the audience today have taken away important and practical insights for themselves. So with that, we would like to bring this masterclass to a close. So thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. We are slightly overrun, but before you go, allow me to just quickly mention our next masterclass to that's going to happen. So our next masterclass will feature Micron on 24th of May from 2 to 4 p.m. And the topic is on Micron's journey to becoming a best workplace. And instead of an online webinar, we are so excited to have Micron host us to a special on-site visit plus a panel discussion. So do visit our Great Place to Work website and social media pages for more registration details. As we draw this session to a close, we would like to also invite you to join us on the mission to building great workplaces. Now, if you'd like to start your own journey towards becoming a great workplace and being recognized on our 2022 Singapore Best Workplaces list, the first step is to get certified. So please scan on the QR code that you see in front of you right now, or connect with us on social media to find out more. So a feedback form will pop up once this webinar is over, and your feedback for today's webinar is so important to us to help us improve. So please spend about 2 minutes to complete the survey. So on that note, thank you everyone for spending your afternoon with us. I trust that it has been a meaningful time for all of you, and we wish you all the best as you continue to build strong and positive workplace culture in your own organizations. So thank you very much and have a lovely afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you. See you, everyone.